Hey, thanks for dropping in. I'm Robert, and please forgive the coarseness of my voice. I'm a little under the weather, which isn't so bad, except for the effect that this cold has had on my taste buds. They've gone absolutely haywire. So right now, strawberries taste like Diet Sprite, and spinach tastes like ash. Not great for someone who makes cooking videos on YouTube. It's a good thing that today's recipe is one that I know like the back of my hand. It's my mother's adobo, or as she puts it, real adobo, because it's her belief that authentic adobo should not have soy sauce. I've never found anything to either confirm or deny that, but she's my mom, so I'll give her the benefit of doubt. Regardless, this dish starts with a bonkers amount of garlic. Next, there's a handful of other ingredients: dry bay leaves, whole black peppercorns, and apple cider vinegar. Mom actually uses plain white vinegar, which is fine, but I think the apple cider brings a little something extra to the party. For protein, I'll be using two kinds, just like Mom. This is pork belly. It came skinless, and I simply cut it up into approximately 2 centimeter cubes. After that, I sprinkled them liberally with salt, and they've been sitting in the fridge for the last couple of hours so that the seasoning can penetrate into the meat. This is not something my mother did. By the way, this is my own modification. The other meat is chicken, specifically bone-in and skin-on chicken thighs. You can certainly swap in skinless chicken if you want, but I highly advise against straying from thighs, or at the very least, legs. And just like the pork, I pre-seasoned these pretty heavily with salt, and they've been chilling in the fridge. Okay, it's time to cook, and the process is simplicity itself. It starts with a splash of veg oil in my wok. Not too much. Both the pork and chicken are going to give off plenty of fat to the dish. Next in is the garlic, followed immediately by the bay and peppercorns. I don't want the garlic to turn even the slightest bit brown, so I'm only going to fry this for about 45 seconds tops. Next, I'll add the pork to the wok. My fire's not very high, it's only on medium, so again, my goal isn't to color anything. I just want to get the meat started cooking. You may be wondering where the chicken is. This pork belly is going to take about twice as long to cook, tender anyways, as a chicken, so I'm giving it a head start. I'm also going to add some freshly cracked black pepper. This is to augment the whole peppercorns that are already in the pan. I like to have actual bits of pepper stick to the meat. I'll stir this up and keep going. I've got one eye on the garlic to make sure it doesn't overcook. Next comes the vinegar, and with this, I can finally stop worrying about the garlic turning brown. I'll give it a minute to come to a simmer. Then I'll add enough water to mostly submerge the meat. The only thing left to do is to slap on the lid, turn the heat down slightly, and wait about 30 minutes. 30 minutes have gone by in my now very misty kitchen, and it's time to add the chicken. I'll just nestle them in wherever they can fit. Then, just like the pork, I'll grind in a little extra pepper. The liquid level looks a tad low, so I'll add a splash more water. Now, you may have noticed that the one thing I didn't add was salt. That's because this meat was already heavily seasoned with salt, and that should filter out into the sauce. I will check the seasoning once everything is cooked, just in case, but it should be good. The last thing to do is slap the lid back on, and let this cook another 30 minutes. So here we are after an hour, and the meat is cooked. It may not look terribly appetizing, but it's cooked. What I'm going to do now is move the meat to a tray. This will allow it to dry out a bit so that it splatters a little bit less when I fry it. Plus, I'll be able to see how much sauce I've got and how much I need to reduce. Okay, it doesn't actually look like I have that much sauce, so I'm only going to let this go for another minute. Alright, I don't want to reduce this sauce much more. It's time to taste. There's a lot of fat on the surface, so I'll muddle it a bit first. Perfect. Sour, but not too sour. The garlic and bay are there. The meatness is there. And the salt from the meat was enough to season everything nicely. I can now strain this off, skim off as much of the surface fat as I can, and set it aside until ready to serve. It's on to the last step, which is to brown the meat. I've got a little veg oil in my wok, and I'll start with the chicken first. I'll lay them in, it doesn't matter skin side up or down, and put on the lid because there's bound to be some splatter. After a couple of minutes, I'll flip them over and repeat. This chicken's looking good, so it can come out. Next in is the pork belly. I've got a lot, so I'm going to do these in 2 batches. Batch 1 is looking pretty good, so I'm going to take them out. And in goes batch 2. Batch 2 is looking dark, brown, and delicious. Actually, it's looking better in batch 1, so I may throw those back in for a minute. Other than that, though, this is ready to plate. And here it is, Adobong Puti, or white adobo. Recipe courtesy of my mom, with a few tweaks and substitutions. The only thing missing is a generous drizzle of the adobo sauce, so that it can soak down into the rice. That should do it. So what can I say about this dish? It was, and remains to this day, one of my favorite things to eat. It's savory and rich and tangy. It's a little mellower because it doesn't have that soy punch, but I think that allows the other flavors like the garlic and the bay and the fruitiness of the apple cider vinegar to really shine through. Oh, and you can't tell just from looking at it, but that pork is ridiculously tender. You could cut it with a spoon. So satisfying, so delicious, you really should give this a try. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and this recipe, and that maybe you decide to give white adobo a shot yourself. If you do, leave me a comment and let me know how it turned out. And also, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. They provide a ton of motivation to keep putting content out, especially when I'm not feeling 100% like right now. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.